How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Supra MK5. We're here yet again at Dead Slow Garage. It's been a while, but we are back with some updates on the car. We're doing some more work so we can bring this thing back to the track. And there is one really big problem with all Mark V Supras that want to hit the track. And that's what we're going to address today, and that is fuel starvation. Now, anybody who's been tracking one of these cars with any more grip than what the stock tires give can attest to the fact that if you have anything less than a full tank of gas, and you go around a right turn at speed, it's all gonna slosh over to the left, and then the power will cut out. So that's something that we ran into a whole bunch while we were competing in this car, and I know Jackie Ding runs into the same thing, and I know a lot of the other cars that I've been associated with do the same thing, so it really is a common problem. And it's really just the fact that the fuel system in the car from factory is designed to work with stock grip. It's not designed to work when you increase grip, and we have increased the grip by a lot in this car, with the tires, and with the aerodynamics, and with the suspension setup, so that fuel is gonna be sloshing over quite a bit harder. So the solution to that is what is called a fuel starvation kit. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. We're going to be using what's called a surge tank. And that comes from our newest partner, Radium Engineering. So thank you to Radium for partnering up with us on this build and helping us to make this car work a little bit better. So one of the benefits, I mean, you could just put a full tank of gas in every time you go out, but fuel is heavy. It's something like 7 pounds per gallon of gasoline. So you don't want to have all that fuel in the car. You actually want to run it as low as possible so that the car is lighter. And that's going to be done by this guy right here. This is a surge tank. The way you can think about this is it's kind of like a capacitor. If you know anything about electronics, a capacitor stores up little amounts of electricity and then very quickly is able to let that current go or let that electricity go. So that's what this does for gasoline. In this tank, it stores up a certain amount of pressure with an internal fuel pump that's inside of this little unit right here. So when you go through a corner and the stock fuel system starts to starve, there is additional capacity, if you will, inside this tank, so that while you're in the middle of that corner, this is feeding the fuel system in the car rather than the factory tank and pump, which just aren't up to the task. So this fills in the gaps, and then by the time you get out of the corner, you haven't gotten any kind of fuel starvation at the engine. This fills back up down the next straightaway, so you're good to go for the next turn. It attaches with this bracket wherever you want it. So this is a universal system. It's not designed for the Supra specifically. So we're probably gonna end up putting this in the trunk. So why don't we go take a look at the car and see how we're gonna set the system up. So if you look in the trunk here, this is where we're gonna mount that surge tank. It's probably gonna end up somewhere around there. And then the tank itself mounts onto this bracket like that. But if you notice, there's no holes that go in between the trunk and the bottom of the car, which is where the fuel tank is. So we're gonna have to cut those out and put in a bulkhead that has lines to it. Now to connect this to the stock fuel system, we need some new lines. We're going to use some AN lines and AN fittings to hook this up with some disconnects so that we're able to pretty easily install this thing. And another nice thing about having disconnects for a race car or a time attack car is you can disconnect the line and pump all the fuel out. Now that's really good for measuring your fuel burn rate. So you fill the tank up, you weigh the car, you drive the car for however long you're gonna be on track for, you come back in, you drain the fuel system, you see exactly how much is left, so you know how much it burned in that exact amount of time. And then you can also weigh it after, so you can get a before and after, so you can measure it with weights, you can measure it with amount of fuel that's come out of the car. You've got a lot of data to work with there. So you can put in just the right amount of fuel and no more. So you don't end up carrying around more weight that you don't need. So let's lift the car up and take a look at how the rest of the system is going to plumb into the car. Here's the underside of the car, and this is the fuel tank. Now you can see why there's a little bit of an issue here with fuel starvation. Half the fuel's over here, and half the fuel's over here. And this is where the fuel pump is. So when you're going around right turns, all this fuel sloshes over to this side, and then there's nothing for the fuel pump to pick up. Left turns, not a problem, because all the fuel goes over here where the pickup is. That's really a cost-saving measure. There are some cars in history that have had 2 fuel pumps. This one doesn't. So one solution you could have is to put a second pump over here, but we're not going to do that. We're going to use our surge tank. And the way that's going to work is right here is the line that comes from the pump and then goes through this line to the front of the car, to the second fuel pump, which is driven off of the cam, and then into the fuel rail and into the engine. So we're going to disconnect this and use an AN fitting instead, and that AN fitting is going to go through the bulkhead somewhere up here. And that's about where I pointed out the bracket where the surge tank is going to fit. The way you can kind of visualize it, this is the battery box. So you can picture where that is inside the trunk, move forward a little bit, and that's about where it's going to be sitting. The other good thing about doing it there is there's actually room to get your hands in here. Now, maybe not quite enough room for a tool, but you can get your hands in, so that's where this piece comes in. This is a quick disconnect. So this is going to be on the bulkhead, sitting up there. You won't need any tools at all. Just clip it in, and it's attached. Pretty cool stuff. So, how do we get this actually plumbed from inside the trunk to the fuel tank here? Well, we need our AN lines. And to pull that off, we are working with Dyme Engineering. Dyme Engineering is SEMA's 2020 Innovator of the Year, and what they do is they make solutions for AN lines, for plumbing, fluid transfer in any part of the car, any kind of system. So we actually have Brennan here from Dyme Engineering to explain his kit, to explain why it works and why it's a really good solution for this sort of thing, and how we can actually make a kit that could be sold specific to this car using stuff that he's got, or why you wouldn't necessarily need a kit because you can just do it yourself. So let's go check in with Brennan and see what he's got.
Hi, I'm Brendan from Dyme. We're here helping Pink Ribbon to plumb up their fuel system on the Mark V Supra using our Rattlesnake kit, which is a kit that has all the analogs of the hoses and materials that we have and allows you to simulate perfectly the types of hoses you need in your vehicle. Once you have made a replica using the segments, all of the segments fittings are identified by their angles and by the hose type and size. You can change the angles and the fine adjustment to make your prototype, and then that you can communicate to us, and we make the exact replica using our Teflon or rubber materials. Our turnaround time is quick because of this, and it lets you receive parts that are fully assembled and tested without having to have any wasted materials or guessing that you've made the right selections. So each kit comes with 2 of every angle fitting that we offer in our range. The fittings are exactly the same as the production fittings down to this point here where they engage with the plastic segments representing the hose. So we have straights, 30s, 45s, 60s, 90s, 120s, 150s and 180s. A few of the compact forged fittings and straight, as well as the orientation dials, which allow you to get fine adjustment to the millimeter on length and change the clocking of the 2 fittings relative to each other. So you can get the exact perfect part for your vehicle. The segments represent the type of hose. So the blue ones represent the Teflon aramid braided hose we call Superleggera. It bends just like the hose until the point where it breaks apart, which is pre-kink. So you can't make your angles too tight. These kits are available in a range of sizes, whatever we offer, and then you can upload your specification online. We produce it here in Los Angeles and we ship worldwide.
Several days later.
Okay, so it's been a couple of days since our last shoot, and during that time, we're actually been waiting for parts. So on the car, the original fuel lines actually come with fittings like these, and what we've been waiting for is actually AN fittings that could be used in conjunction with the OEM lines. So we got these, and now today we're finally actually ready to mock everything up with the Dyme kit, and I'll let Brennan here go over how everything works, and that's what we're going to do today.
Okay, so we're going to take the fittings from the kit and mock up a few different options for you to see how you want this plumbed. So we use the feed and the supply line here. We'll try a few different fitting types to see what's going to work for your application. And we'll start with a 90 degree and a 180. We want to try and bring it down to the floor level so we can pin it to the ground.
Let me look at this.
It looks okay, but I think it could be better. We could probably match that a little better with a 150 versus a 90. So disconnect the segments, connect this one, and tighten that up so we can join them here and then point them whichever direction you want to run it.
Yep, looks good.
So that's probably how we'll do the out of the tank lines. And now I guess we're ready to put it into the car, and then we can run the rest to where the bulkhead and the floor is going to be.
Yeah, let's mock it up. So we're bringing the surge tank to the car now, and here is where we are thinking about putting it, and I'm pretty sure we're just actually going to leave it there. Reason being is, one, that's really the only place with a level, I guess a surface for us to actually mount that thing. And then the second reason, we're kind of actually putting it off center a little bit just so it kind of counterbalances the weight as much as we can. Just the little things that we're thinking about. But yeah, I think this is where we're gonna have it. And the lines here, we're gonna mock it up so it runs out from the fuel pressure regulator here, and then down through here, and then down through this hole that's conveniently already there from the factory. So that's what we're gonna do. And then from here, it's gonna go back to our original fuel tank and also into the feed line to the engine. So Brendan here is gonna keep going with the Rattlesnake and the Dyme kit.
Yep.
And keep mocking it up.
So we just connect more of these segments onto what we already put there as the starting point. The way these are designed is that they act just like a hose, so that they don't twist, along their axis. So it keeps it very accurate from point A to point B of the angles between the fittings.
Yes.
The predetermined bend radius of the hose is built into the segments too, so you can mock up how tight you should get it without losing any, like slowing the velocity or risking the hose to close up, kinking or narrowing. So we'll just clip these on to what we have, and then we'll run it towards where you want it to be, and then we decide the next steps.
All right. Yeah, show these guys how it all clips in with the spline lined up and stuff. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have done fuel lines or any sort of fluid lines before, but I had this RX-7 before that I did lines for, and I've wasted so much material just trying to, do trial and error to see what fittings fit right, what angles they fit right, how it turns. Exactly like Brendan said. So I kind of wish I met this guy 10 years ago. Would have saved me a lot of money, but here you are now. It's all good. It's okay. Huh? Yeah.
Well, you met me 6 years ago, I guess. Okay, so take this line, we'll line up the spline here is what locks into here at 0. So all these, as long as you have them at 0 connected, everything stays aligned. And then this one, and I guess you're gonna make some brackets to pin these along the wall here.
Yep.
And then we'll run these two to do a 90 into that hole there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's how we're gonna do it, I think. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, like you said, the only thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna 3D print some sort of bracket here that'll hold the hose together, just keep them in line, just kind of make it look pretty. But I think overall, this looks about right. There's no weird kinks here, as you can see. The lines are bending naturally as the way they should. But yeah, I think this looks pretty good.
So we're just gonna do one line first?
Yeah, I think we could do one line first.
So let's do the line, the feed line first.
Sure.
So just put that how it's gonna be. Do you want to tape this down so it doesn't move?
Yeah.
At all? Well, I guess we pull on it.
Let me get in the car here real quick. Oh, yep, there it is. It's a good thing I'm space efficient. So one of the really cool things here I'm gonna point out in a bit is the bending radius of the hose going into where that hole is. It's a good thing. It really goes to show it's a good thing that we have this kit here. This is a small car. Okay, so you want to check this out real quick. So, if I didn't actually mock this up and I just kind of guess, I would imagine the hose would just bend right in there, perfect at a degree where, I wouldn't have to worry about it. But if you look at it, right, realistically, this hose isn't a perfect bend into that. So there's actually a gradual curve. So that means I actually have to compensate for that and make the hole in the right size so the hose doesn't actually get caught on the edge and it gets cut up later, or it doesn't get kinked up. So perfect reason why. Like that's like a really good way to show why we mocked this up first. All right, let's go up. Is that good?
It should be good enough.
All right. So I'm gonna cut this open real quick.
You gonna put that one fitting on?
Yeah, we gotta get rid of the tape real quick.
I'm pretty sure like a drunk firefly would do a better job for lighting than you.
Well, you know, you got me. That's all you got right now, instead of a drunk firefly.
Okay.
It is looking pretty good. Here's what we got right now. Brennan just mocked up the Rattlesnake kit up to it. So here, just to show you guys, but this is the fitting that I was talking about, the original fitting, right? It's one of these like OEM barb lines and whatnot. So we have to wait for this fitting here, but this is just for test fitting purposes only. But it will go over that, and it clips back in the same manner as what the OEM clip would do, actually. But instead of the OEM line, it'll just be a dash line. AN fitting for us to use aftermarket fuel lines on it, so our motor spec grade fuel lines on it. So that's what it's going to essentially look like. This is the clip that will go back to it, that controls the fuel pump, the fuel sender unit, etc. And that pretty much sums it up for this. So this is the line that we're going to have to mock up next. This is to the engine. So this will feed this line back to the surge tank. So essentially, if you think about it, the surge tank just runs in line with the entire fuel system. So that's really kind of it. Yeah, so if you could look too, this is the, you could just follow this line here. This fuel line here is to the evap canister. So we're just gonna follow it all the way back and back through here and back up to that hole that we were talking about earlier and go into the surge tank. Okay, so I'm under the car again and I'm actually trying to mock up exactly where the hose would go. So I'm like tightening it up and just make it look really nice because I'm OCD. Anyways, but we come to a point here where based on the way that I mocked it up with the hose up there, the hose here, as you can see, it no longer lines up how it did just 5 minutes ago. So I gotta be able to fix that. So right now the issue is, how do we twist that hose, or how far do I need to twist that hose in order to clock it into the right orientation? So Brendan, you wanna show me that?
So there's two ways to resolve this on the car. Well, one way with the two different options to solve it. So we have these dials, which on the big one, it has the functionality of adding a small amount of length. So if you need to adjust it by, say, 20 millimeters or less, you can do that on the dial rather than adding or subtracting segments. And then this side of it changes the degrees between the two fittings. So you can have one fitting at one end at 0, and the other end of the fitting it's at 90, 180, 120. So this one has both features in it. On this application, we only need to clock it. So we use the more compact one, which does the same job, but it's smaller, shorter. It doesn't have the length changing feature on it. So we'll connect this. It just connects like the rest of the fittings. And then we will slot this side on. And then we just turn the fitting here, however it needs to be. In this case, like this. And then once we secure it in place, we're happy with how that routing is. I can just tighten off the locking nut, and then that will give us a readout of the angle.
Right, so if it's like Brennan says, right? So if you look at it, we added this segment here. So this has numbers on it. And then based on that number, later on, I would just, after I mock everything up, I would just tell Brennan like, hey, these are the fittings I need, this is the length, and then at this section, I would need to change the angle based on what the dial is giving me.
Yeah,
so
and you can put this anywhere, and whenever there's a straight enough section to do it, so obviously you can't put it on a curve like this, but anywhere because the angle will be the same no matter where you place this, because you have this feature here that lines everything together. So this is 0, and then this is 0 relative to this. So you can put this feature anywhere. You can put it up at the end that's connected to the surge tank, and it'll give you the same result. That's how it works.
It's amazing. I love this thing. Yeah, I mean, didn't see it earlier, but I was, just kind of messing around with all the joints up here. But I disconnected this thing like 3 or 4 times already. But essentially, it's that if I couldn't disconnect it, I would legit have to cut a new hose every single time, try to like make them work. So I love this thing. All right, so we just took the entire kit out, the measurements out. So now what?
So this gives us basically the prototype of the line you need. So it shows us that we have a 180 at this end, we have a 120 at this end. And on the dial, it gives us a 240 degree rotation between the two. So now we just have to count the number of segments, which gives us the length, and then I can produce a exact replica of this in PTFE material.
Amazing. And I believe Brendan's also gonna fire sleeve the entire hose for us, since it is sitting at a rather, I want to say, sensitive location with all the subframe and sway bars there.
Yeah, there's going to be a bit of rubbing, so we'll make sure we put a sleeve on it that takes the brunt of that, where it's outside the vehicle. Inside the vehicle, I don't think it needs it, but we'll make sure that it lasts a long time. And this material, and a Teflon material, the lifespan of that is almost indefinite, as long as it doesn't get abused, it doesn't change, no matter what the media or fuel you're using, E85, E100, methanol, C16, it's all fine. It won't swell or take that up. The heat won't affect it. So as long as it doesn't get abused outside of its range of operation, it'll last for a long time.
It's awesome. Yeah, so it's like Brendan says, like, yes, it could take abuse, but hey, in racing, anything can happen. And the other thing is that once he registers this entire prototype in terms of length, angle, and rotation, that means I have that on file with him every single time. So anytime I need to order essentially a spare part, I just gotta tell him, hey, what I need to order, and that's it. I don't have to go out and remeasure again, or if something changes. So it's awesome. Cool. Now we're gonna move on to prototyping
the feed line.
Feed line, yeah. Let's do it. Okay, so right now I am mocking up the second line, fuel line. This is from the surge tank to the engine, so it's the feed line. And right now I am doing the same process again with the rattlesnakes. And Brennan's whipping me with one of them. And right now, gonna have to feed it over and above the sway bar and the subframe. If anybody's done the sway bar on this car, you're probably suicidal, like I am. And then, but yeah, you know how crazy tight it is in the back. But that's where we're gonna feed it through. It basically matches up with the evap canister line again, and we'll just follow it all the way up to where the hard line is at the engine. So that's kind of like what it looks like right now. You can kind of see. Oh, I gotta connect one of the parts here. Why? Why? Stop. Why? Ah! All right, I can't work on these conditions. So I'm gonna feed through the same place again where that hole is in the trunk. And it's gonna go up the sway bar, right up above the sway bar where the evap canister line is. And we'll just tie it up and follow it all the way down. And just follow this all the way up. Okay, let me connect this part. We just ran out of these little joints, but There's a lot of them, so mate's gonna go get some more, but if you wanna come check this out, right here, we're just literally following this all the way back to the front of the car. Because when you take off the original fuel line, it sits right here too. So helpful. Boop. It's actually really satisfying to play with this thing. These are where it originally clips onto, the original lines. So we'll just follow it all the way up to right here. This is where the feed line goes into, that goes to the engine. Okay, final mock-up of the fuel line. Okay, so here's where we're at now. This is the final mock-up that we're gonna do. This is where I'm kind of happy with. Basically, this is the feed line to the engine, and it's gonna come to the same spot from the trunk and up above the sway bar, like I said earlier, come back down. We're gonna follow the evap line here. And then, so we're actually I'm just gonna try to use the original retainer clips that was already on the car. And if you just look at it, I'm just gonna follow it all the way through, use the clips, and then all the way up back to where the original hard line is. So this is the line that goes back to the engine, and then this is the fitting. And I think this is kind of where I'm happy with it. Looks pretty good. I think this thing looks pretty sick. So right here, this is the whole line. And this took, I don't know, approximately 10 minutes to put it all together to make sure that it was in the right length, right angle, right fitting. So yeah, it's gonna work out pretty well, I say. So just to sum it all up to what we did today, and today was, the only task was to actually mock up the lines, the fuel lines going from the surge tank and also from the original fuel tank to our surge tank. So we did that today with DymePSI's help with all the Rattlesnake kit. So you guys could look real quick where we're gonna put the surge tank, right? That's the final placement. And then from there, it's gonna go into wherever it needs to go. But yeah, that's kind of it. So after that, mate's gonna take all the measurements that we made today. You know, it's gonna be the fitting, the type of fitting, the angles of the fitting, how long each of the hoses are, and what angle and rotation they might have. He's gonna take all that back, and then he's gonna actually physically make the real lines for us and come back here and we'll do the final installation of the surge tank kit. But that's kind of it for today. But yeah, again, you know, seriously, big shout out to Dyme. He's standing right here and he's not paying me to say this. So, but seriously, man, like, I honestly don't know. I can't emphasize enough the fact how useful this thing really is. I've done lines before, and honestly, if I was to do this the original way, I would have been there with like hangers, strings. I don't know, man. Like, I'd be sitting there for a couple days just to kind of like mock it up to the way I wanted to. But we got this thing done in 2 hours. So I think that's an all-time record for me. But yeah, without this, couldn't have got it done today. And it saved me a whole load of money. I mean, you guys, like anybody out there that's done lines, you guys know, $10, $15 a foot. So with all that, I would have had to spend, I don't know, good 30 feet worth of stuff just to mock it up. So yeah, DymePSI, seriously, saved our ass today. And also, of course, you guys have to, and you have to follow Supra MK5 on Instagram, YouTube. That's where we're gonna post all of our content. Of course, my team, Pink Ribbon Racing, for all of our motorsport content. And very importantly, DymePSI. You guys gotta check it out. And Radium Engineering, who's provided us with the sweet fuel surge tank. Without this, I'm pretty sure we're gonna go out and run 3 laps and fuel starve our car and blow it up. So yes, lots of love to everybody here.